We are ready for the reasoning part of the pre-writing. So should already have done your claim statement and found your evidence, and now you're ready to do the reasoning. We have one step left after this, which is the easier parts, the intro and conclusion. So, this is one of the hardest parts, but hang in there. I'm going to get you through it, give you some tips. And as inspiration, I have on my Alexander Hamilton DBQ essay shirt. If Alexander Hamilton could write 51 essays in 6 months, you can finish this one. I know you can. That's a reference to Alexander Hamilton, this guy who wrote, that guy who wrote 51 different essays to convince people to approve the Constitution that we have right now. You might end up reading them when you're a senior in high school. They're part of the Federalist Papers. It was Alexander Hamilton and James Madison who wrote most of them, and John Jay wrote 5 of them. But 51 essays in 6 months! Wow! You can do one. So here's our target. We're going to look at the exemplary on the reasoning, because this has a little bit more than just the proficient. And I want all of you to try this out, because I think you can do this. This essay is one that really you almost want to do a counter argument. So we're going to get to the counter argument here in a minute, but to get it for you have to have a sophisticated explanation that connects the evidence and the claim or thesis. To have a 3 to meet the target, you just have to connect the evidence and the claim or thesis. You have to explain how they connect. So let's look at how we do that. Going back to our graphic organizer, I'm going to focus on this one. So I already have my evidence chosen, and my reason is that the colonists did not have a representative in Parliament. The first thing I need to do for reasoning is I need to say, is that really enough of a topic sentence? I think I need to add a little bit more to that one. So that was what I was thinking. I'm going to come back and look at my document A and see what I wrote in my questions and my answers here. All right, that's exactly what I had written here almost. Not quite. The colonies didn't have a representative in Parliament. I don't really want to go back and just say the Stamp Act Congress said, because this paragraph is going to use more than just something from document A. So I'm still going to add something to that, though. I can think about adding no taxation without representation. In this case, I think I'm going to save that for later. I might use that in conclusion or something. For right now, I'm going to add this. The colonists did not have a representative in Parliament, so they felt that the Stamp Act was not fair. Now, should you have the same topic sentence I have? No! You need to write your own, but see how I added just a little bit more to it. I brought in that whole idea of it not being fair or not justified. That helps remind readers of my thesis. So make sure you have a reference back to your claim. So I'm ready to look at the detail to support reason 2. I have my quote from document A, from the Stamp Act Congress. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but I will tell you it is one of these first couple boxes right here. Those 3 are all kind of what I could use to talk about representation in Parliament. And so I'm going to introduce that, first of all, so that readers know what it's about. So I'm going to introduce my quote with who said it. It was the Stamp Act Congress. So according to the Stamp Act Congress, Congress's Declaration of Rights and Grievances, and then I'm ready for the quote. So this is not a complete sentence, but when you put it together with the quote and the citation, it is going to be just right. So I have it introduced. My readers know where my quote is coming from. I cited it. Now I need to do the explanation. And here's where we get into, what do we say to explain it? So you need to connect it back to the thesis. So you're going to need to say something about it being justified or not. You're going to need to use some key words from the quote. The key word from my quote is taxes. And there's something there about representative, or, you got to have consent. So one of those things, I should have those in my reasoning. Think about it this way. My quote is what the document says. Now I need to add what it means and why it matters. So I'm explaining what that quote says in my own words, and then why it matters. All right, the Stamp Act, Congress said the Stamp Act was not justified because the colonies did not have a representative in Congress, right? So this is what it means. That's what it means. And then why it matters. Why did it matter? They knew they had the right to have their ideas heard in Parliament, but the representatives in Parliament were so far away they did not know what the colonists thought. And so that is why it matters. So you see I have it highlighted there. The quote is what it says. Then we need to have what it means and why it matters. And then I'm going to go on and I'm going to look at my next detail to support reason 2. This one, the way I wrote it, I don't really need to introduce it, so I'm just going to go straight in here. Patrick Henry argued the Stamp Act was illegal because the colonists did not have a representative in Parliament. Now I need to explain that. You know what? When we were doing the DBQ document about Patrick Henry, I'm pretty sure that there was a summary somewhere. Let's see. So here's the document. So I'm going to quote. If I were quoting, I would be quoting directly from that. No, it's not down here. You might want to use what you said here in that last question. Always, always, always in the documents, that last question is a good one to look at when you're looking at the reasoning. You might just be able to use that exact sentence. But now I remember it was in the notes. That's where our summary is. So right down here, I should have at least written a summary in my own words of exactly what Patrick Henry was meaning and saying. So I could just copy that paragraph, whatever I wrote there, and I could paste it right here. That's my reasoning. It's probably going to be good enough. It's a pretty good, if you wrote a good summary, you have a good reasoning there. You have a good explanation of what he said, and he explained why it matters. So there's not a lot you need to add to that. So then the last thing I need to do is I need to wrap it up. So let's see. My concluding sentence. You know what? I kind of think I want to bring in that whole taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. And so I might start my conclusion. I need to remind the reader of the claim. Colonists use a slogan, no taxation without representation, to show. That's how what this paragraph is about, right? So now I need to refer back to my claim. So let's see. Colonists use that slogan to show that the Stamp Act was not fair because they didn't. You finish it up. And some of you won't use these ideas at all because you're arguing that it was justified. If you need some additional help, you can look at the Google Classroom document that's attached to your assignment called DBQ Tips 1-pager. And it has some sentence starters right here you can use for reasoning. Now, remember, if it helps you, think about what it says. That's your quote. Then you need what it means. And lastly, why it matters. Why is it important? If you have all those parts, says, means, and matters, for each source, you're going to have a very strong both evidence and reasoning.